Okay, so I'm choosing to make my first video about a topic that's very near and dear to my heart, Star Wars. And what am I choosing to talk about? You guessed it, The Last Jedi.
Hasn't that been out for over a month?
Yes it has. And with questionable ratings and a ton of fan backlash, there's still plenty to talk about, believe me. If you get into the social issues of it, if you get into the franchise and what's going on with Disney, I think it's nuts. But I also think it's happening for some very valid reasons, and that's what I'm here to talk about. Okay, fair enough. So you're probably like, well, who the hell is this guy? Good question. Well, first of all, I'm a certified geek. I grew up with the original trilogy. It inspired me. It got me way more interested in art, and design, reading, and acting. For a long time, I wanted to go into creature design. And in addition to that, the films sparked my imagination. And the toys and the cool stuff I was lucky enough to have got me through some pretty rough times as a kid, as I'm sure many people can say. It filled a hole for me. If you know what I mean. I loved Star Wars through its darkest, dullest times when I thought it was done and gone in the late 80s. And then came the 1997 explosion of the special editions, the historic changing hands of the beloved franchise just a few years ago, and to current year with the release of The Last Jedi. So grab a hydro flask of your favorite green milk, strap in, and let's go. Is this seriously still a thing? Well, I'm gonna cover my ass, bitches. Okay, so I'm gonna jump into the sticky stuff first, namely diversity and inclusion. So lately I've noticed this whole phenomenon of people saying, I don't see myself on screen, therefore I'm not represented. Since when did we become a generation of people that only had to see ourselves on screen in order to feel like we connect? Hell, I saw a little bit of myself in Daniel Russo in The Karate Kid, in He-Man, in Seeley from The Color Purple, in Joanna from Overboard. That might have been a little too much information. All cinema is not obligated to represent everybody all the time. It's almost impossible to do. This isn't Instagram. You don't pop on a filter and call it yours. It's a film. Sometimes it's a piece of art, sometimes it's a product.
Sometimes it's a piece of crap.
But either way, there's humans on the screen. We live in a culture of customization. What I mean by that is we spend a lot of time making personalized bubbles on social media and other outlets. And what does that do? It starts to build a skewed expectation that everything, all the time, is starring us. To my knowledge, Star Wars doesn't currently have any gay characters. Does that mean I'm not represented? No, because it's still a human story. I don't need to see Poe and Finn dry hump or some Galian with 10 dicks riding a rainbow-colored speeder to feel like I can relate. Isn't it possible that finding a connection to something in the least likely places so that even you are surprised is a much more fulfilling experience? I do. Another thing I noticed, which started a couple years ago with The Force Awakens and seems to be amplifying now with The Last Jedi, is Star Wars being hijacked to wage some sort of gender war. Journalists, bloggers, and fans asserting that Star Wars is finally diverse and has strong females, and the toxic masculinity of Star Wars has at last been put in its place.
What are you talking about?
Princess Leia is probably one of the strongest female characters in cinema to date. She often took the Hutt by the horns and got herself out of a lot of sticky situations. Star Wars has been inclusive from its inception because it's a human story that everybody connected with and understood. That's why it worked so well the first time. Also, let's not forget that this is a space opera fantasy. It's not a platform for grandstanding about earthly social issues or identity politics. We go to the movies to escape and enjoy and hopefully be told a good story. Not to be told or preached to that we're on the wrong side of history. Or herstory? If you're going to the movies just to have your ideologies validated, you might be going for the wrong reasons. And by the way, those of you saying that Star Wars didn't include black people until Empire Strikes Back, I beg to differ, because A New Hope had one, in the person of James Earl fucking Jones. This is a classically trained actor who's been successful on both stage and cinema, not to mention his voiceover work. He went on to create one of the most iconic villains in all of cinema canon. Without him, we don't have Star Wars. And not seeing him doesn't negate his performance, it's just as valid. Now I know at this point the film has been mulled over with a fine-tooth comb, so I'm not going to bore you with every little thing that I had problems with the film. I would say most of my stuff centered around plot problems and characters. This was a big, boring space chase that just goes on and on and on. I started to lose interest. It wasn't nearly enough of a story point to drag out through the entire film. There's something I don't understand about the Resistance. They keep saying oppressed, they keep saying downtrodden. Well, how does the Resistance have all this time to be styling their hair, wearing flawless clothes, and be dripping with jewelry? Most of the characters just didn't grow or change at all. In fact, most of them failed. And while I understand that's usually a pretty important component of a part 2 of any story, it just wasn't dynamic and interesting. It kind of left us nowhere. Rose. I found Rose to be a troubling and meddlesome character. First of all, I don't even know what or who she is. Does she lay down pipe? Is she a security guard? Is she a rebel? Is she a pilot? What exactly is it that she does? Now, I really get it that she cares about a lot of things in the movie. She cares a lot. But here's the problem. By following all her little causes, she basically screwed up some major things. My main example? Freeing the Fathiers on Canto Bight, but leaving the slave children. I understand it's a valid point that they couldn't exactly bring slave children into the middle of a galactic battle, but they could have at least gotten them out of the city or the complex. What did they get?
The Resistance came to Canto Bight, and all I got was this stupid ring.
Finn was set up to have a wonderful moment of character growth in sacrificing himself for the Resistance by shutting down the laser beam that was going to knock the door open. She literally knocks him off course. And she kind of seals the fate of the rest of the Resistance.
Your heart's in the right place, Rose, but I don't know where the hell your brain is.
I really wasn't sure why Rose was there. Watching Kelly Marie Tran act, I seriously thought I was watching some sort of contest winner. Something to the tune of, if you sent in 10 proofs of purchase from specially marked cans of Campbell's Star Wars soup, you would be entered for a chance to win a role in the latest Star Wars movie. I've really got to be honest and say the character of Rose bugs the crap out of me. I kind of feel like she would be that person on social media who's either always trying to get you to sign some online petition or who puts 100 hashtags after every single post.
We are the spark that will ignite the rebellion.
I thought I was at some really bad rally. The nearly word for word repeat of the Jedi throne room scene with the Emperor, Vader, and Luke. Come on. The second to the last scene with what was left of the Resistance just kind of serenely chilling out in the Millennium Falcon. I was waiting for chips and hummus to come out and for someone to start a round of Cards Against Humanity.
Oh, it's a jolly holiday with Carrie.
Probably the most talked about scene in the entire film. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's Carrie Poppins. I really love Carrie Fisher. I love her work, I love her directing, I love her writing. She's really quite an accomplished actress and performer. It makes me very sad that she's no longer around. I really would have loved to honestly hear her input about what they did with her character in this movie. It makes absolutely no sense what they chose to do. This was really one of the moments that ruined it all for me. Now we know that Leia is a Skywalker, which means that there's Force powers in her family. Is she Force sensitive? Yep. Have we ever seen her use the Force? Not in any major sense, but we've seen her communicate with Luke through her mind, and she has intuitions about certain things. But to boost her up from someone who's never really used the Force in this capacity to near goddess status by having her survive a gigantic explosion and giving her some sort of superhero powers, which she's never practiced before, is asinine. You can't Frankenstein something together like Princess Leia's background and the Force, which she's never practiced. When you do that, you toss out all the rules of this particular world. And speaking of toss, I don't even have a section in this video about Luke Skywalker because there's nothing more to say. The scene where he tosses the lightsaber over his shoulder, as far as I'm concerned, that's Disney, Kathleen Kennedy, and Rian Johnson and what they're doing to the franchise. Okay, I'm going against all my principles with this next section. The soundtrack! I love movie soundtracks. They're probably the type of music that take up the most of my music collection. I love ya. I do. But somebody's gotta call Mr. Williams out on his shit with these new movies. Here's why. One of the most glaring examples I saw from The Last Jedi is that during the Snoke, Rey, and Kylo scene, they were playing the Emperor's theme in a scene that didn't feature the Emperor. Couldn't they come up with a new theme for Snoke? And does every single movie have to end with the binary sunset motif now? Empire Strikes Back didn't, nor did Return of the Jedi. And now that every film apparently has to have an interior Millennium Falcon TIE Fighter chase scene, here we go again with the asteroid field motif. It's even the same music that was used inside the frozen asteroid in Star Tours back in the day. Fanboy! If you like the movie, you're a fanboy. If you hate the movie, it's because you're a fanboy. So which one is it? I feel like the word fanboy has been so generalized and used so much that it doesn't mean anything anymore. It's just a term meant to dismiss and neutralize the other person's point of view. And I think taking that approach is just really counterproductive. If we're gonna fight about Star Wars, let's fight. Let's get it out on the table. Both sides have valid points of view. But to just say fanboy and leave it at that doesn't really work. Fans of the original trilogy have now been made into this monolith of just older guys who used to go to the very first Comic-Cons and collected Burger King glasses. I think we should give credit where credit is due, because a lot of these people get dismissed as just the old nostalgic fans who can't change and just want their childhoods back. That's not necessarily the case. It was their passion and enthusiasm that propelled a lot of the Star Wars universe. Thank God for them. Theory culture! Oh my God. Enough with theory culture already. Entire channels devoted to endless speculation and picking apart trailers frame by frame to try to get some hint of what's to come next. You shouldn't have to be a forensic scientist to see and understand a Star Wars movie, and you shouldn't have to watch a supplemental video or read a pamphlet to know what's going on. In the end, was it worth all the speculation and theorizing? Because Disney and Lucasfilm played you all like fiddles when they threw everything out the window in The Last Jedi.
Not to mention, you played your viewers harder than a banjo from Deliverance with clickbaity titles for subscribers and views. You want a theory? Oh, I've got a theory.
The slave child at the end, fantasizing about the Resistance, who left him and his friends there? Well, guess what? For some of you people's rejection of the prequels and putting any and all subsequent Star Wars films on a pedestal since then, the end of The Last Jedi sets us up to have a Force-sensitive boy who's a slave and needs rescuing so he can become a Jedi. We're back at the Phantom Menace, full circle.
Gotcha, bitch!
So there's no doubt in my mind that there were plenty of moments in The Last Jedi that left you going, what the fuck? Yeah, I did too. You certainly weren't alone. So here's a list of head scratchers I found totally confusing. How did Finn just recover from getting a lightsaber chop up the spine? Oh, you can just call the bridge of a Star Destroyer now from your little X-Wing fighter? Like they wouldn't have separate, service carriers or anything like that? One clearly has T-Mobile, the other one has Verizon because they probably have a better range, How does that work? Who the fuck is filming Maz Kanata in her heated battle? Where did C-3PO's red arm go? Gone. Vanished. You can drop bombs directly down in space now? Why don't all the stormtroopers have the same armor as Phasma? They'd be undefeatable. Can we decide on what the weather's gonna be in a scene that continues in real time from one movie to the next? Can we figure this out? Can you maybe shoot the film or that scene on the same day? That would be great. Thanks. The Resistance is out of gas? When was that ever an issue? When did that ever occur in a previous Star Wars film? When was fuel ever even mentioned? And of course they're running out of gas. A guy would never let that happen. Maybe it's a metaphor for the franchise. How did Luke hold Leia's hand if he's not there? And how did he give her Han's dice off of the dashboard of the Millennium Falcon? How does R2-D2 still have a 30+ year old recording of Leia
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
from the original Star Wars in his memory banks? Please tell me how that works. I don't even have yesterday's work emails. Are you kidding me? Also, why is a droid waxing sentimental with Luke as if he's looking through an old scrapbook? What the hell happened to the third lesson Luke was gonna teach Rey? BB-8 can't get out of a net on his own in The Force Awakens, but in this movie, he can bound and gag 3 grown men security officers on Canto Bight. Droid Ex Machina, anybody? Rey now speaks droid and Wookiee? How does every planet a Jedi retires to happen to have a scary vision cave? Why is Vice Admiral Holdo dressed less like a Vice Admiral and more like the manager of a lesbian bookstore? How did Finn drag Rose across the entire salt field without a single member of the First Order firing on their little toboggan parade? Tits! What is this film's preoccupation with tits? We gotta squeeze them, we gotta love them, we gotta see them. We gotta see Simu sitting on the beach, suntanning with 4 tits. We gotta have frog nuns cleaning up the island with their little brassieres under their little cloaks. And in Canto Bight, we have to witness this thing made entirely of tits. Oh my god. And let's not forget Benicio del Toro! Now the reason I'm bringing him up is because it lends to something that I call the Disney drop repeat. What I mean by that is Disney has a habit in its films of dropping visual hints and repeating extremely familiar imagery that you've seen before, so your brain multitasks and starts reminding you of one Disney-owned franchise while you're watching another. It's all about cross-promotion. That's why I think Benicio del Toro was in The Last Jedi. We all know he was in Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm not going to spend too much time expounding on this, but one movie I will point you to as an example of this is The Jungle Book. Repeatedly, again and again, throughout the live-action Jungle Book, we almost have shot-for-shot reminders of The Lion King, as if Disney keeps going, "Remember the Lion King, remember what a good time you had at that, you should see it again, on Blu-ray." Okay, so that might be a little bit conspiracy theorist, but I think if you watch enough Disney's movies, you'll see it. It happens a lot. Kathleen Kennedy! If you think Disney just handed Rian Johnson this episode and said, "I'll see you when it's done," then you're being incredibly naive.
In an ideal world where he wasn't so concentrated on giving cameos to his buddies, he might have had time to write a better story.
And why do you think they keep having all these controversies with hiring and firing directors? They call it creative differences. You know what that translates to? Some of those directors who went bye-bye didn't want to have Disney breathing down their necks and pulling some of the strings.
Kathleen Kennedy's behind it.
I think one needs look no further than the image of Kathleen Kennedy in her "The Force is Female" shirt. If you explore public appearances by Kathleen Kennedy at Comic-Cons and other enthusiast groups, over and over and over, you'll see that she keeps talking about strong women. Kennedy has been completely transparent not only about her interest in pushing up the girl quota in this franchise, but also about what I would say borders on mild to moderate disdain for the male fan base. I think that points to the idea that she definitely has her own personal politics involved in this. The reason I think this is a problem because Star Wars is for everybody. One important thing I'd like to point out about Kathleen Kennedy is that she was always the right-hand woman to Steven Spielberg and the likes of George Lucas. She's not a creative, she's a producer, and producers know one thing: money. And the fact of the matter is, there are some hot-button issues that are very lucrative right now. Feminism is one of them, I think. When you play to issues that people have very strong, passionate feelings about, the money will follow because they'll give you their support and their patronage. I personally don't understand this huge, unbalanced push for girl power. And actually, if you look at it from a certain point of view, the way that they're now framing these films isn't very girl power. Because under female leadership, it looks like the resistance keeps losing.
Kathleen Kennedy's behind it.
Well, I'm nearing the end of my video, but I wanted to talk about one last thing. I could kind of already see the direction things were going when I saw The Force Awakens. I think there's a large portion of people who are tired of bad storytelling, are tired of the excuses, are tired of being hit over the head with social messages in a franchise that's just supposed to be fun, adventurous, and exciting, and inspiring. And now that I've seen The Last Jedi, I can finally admit it that for me, my part in this story is done. I've never subscribed to the idea that anything ruined my childhood. My childhood is completely intact, and honestly I feel so lucky because I got Star Wars at what I think is its best. We got Star Wars at its best. Nobody can take that away from me, and they can't take it away from you. Relish the memories, relish your childhood. If you want to go on with this franchise, hey, more power to you. Maybe we should pass it on to the next generation. And I will continue to love Star Wars, but for now, I think it's time for me to have my binary sunset moment. My memories aren't going anywhere. Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in and watching. I would love to hear from you in the comments below, right there. Tell me what you think. I'd love to hear your opinions as well. And what's more, if you enjoyed what you watched, feel free to hit the like button and subscribe. I'm really excited to get working on some new content to bring your way. And yes, I know, I didn't get everything right technically, but I'm working on it. Next one will be even better.
In other words, don't get on my case about it in the comment section. All that shit will get fixed.
Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.